I want to explain how the heel is trimmed out of the foot and how the periopal skin stretches to cover up the same space that the heel should have originally taken the place of. Because this is really important, because this is something that is happening all over the place. You know, if you've been on the Facebook page, you've seen my horse, where he had the little short foot from there to there. See, you can trim out that much heel, you know, all this, because all of this is cartilage. It can do different things. It doesn't just get pulled down and forward. Parts of it does. Let's just say, here's our inner foot. See, I have my bar lamina here. This is where the bar would be. And this is all cartilage back here. As you trim this down and lower, every time you trim it, you're trimming out a little bit of this wall here, okay? So that finally, but here's the thing I want you to know. Now, your periopal skin is right here, right? Okay, now, look at the width. Look at the width of the periopal now. It's right to there. See the white? That is periopal skin covering what is called the bulb. And the bulb is only supposed to be that wide. And it's as wide as, okay, you know how you kind of see a line here? This is your coronary band groove right here that the coronary band sits in. And so ultimately your bulb here is only supposed to be as wide as the coronary band. Now the coronary band stops here, goes flat, and goes under the foot, and that's what your bar grows from. Okay, right here is where your frog corium starts, going over this way. But see, that periopal skin is only supposed to be about that wide, no wider than seeing this periopal skin get a lot wider than that. Well, especially on you see a foundered horse, sometimes you'll see it be like that, a foot that's rotated, just a big, wide, fat bulb back there. It is only supposed to be as wide as the coronary band, as the frog corium. I mean, okay, look, how wide is the coronary band? See it? Right there. Now it turns into frog corium right about here. See? But look at how beautiful is that? Well, look how narrow that is. Okay. Now look at that. Okay. So if your bulb is any wider than that, you have heel trimmed out of the horse to one degree or another. Because what the heel buttress does, it grows up and it supports this up like this. Supports all the cartilage and the back of the cartilage here. What happens is that, well, first of all, we don't know what the true anatomy of this is supposed to be. Now you know. It should not be any wider than this over here. Okay, but what happens is this, when the heels are trimmed out of the horse. Now, yes, sometimes all of this here gets pulled down. But what's the one thing about cartilage? It doesn't like to be moved. Isn't that correct? This cartilage here, if I pull this down, it wants to go right back up, right? Pull it down. What's it do? It goes up. Okay, so if I trim the heel out and I pull all this cartilage down, what's it going to be wanting to do? It's going to want to come back up. So what happens when you trim the heel out? It's going to pull this cartilage down. Cartilage doesn't want to stay down the whole time that the heel has been pulled down like this, because, you know, it's all attached in the hoof capsule here, right? The cartilage is constantly pulling up like this. So a lot of times what happens is, well, the periopal is attached to the hide right here. You see that? It's attached right here. So when this cartilage pulls up like this, it stretches that periopal. Again, this is how it happens. You trim the heel off the horse. It pulls the cartilage and the hairline down, but the cartilage doesn't want to stay down because it's cartilage. And so the whole time, the cartilage is pulling up like this. As a result, this periopal skin will stretch with the cartilage. Okay, so this disguises the heel that has been trimmed out. Like if I took this heel down to here and I pulled all this cartilage down, well then this cartilage is going to release and want to stretch back up, and then it's going to have this big chunk of stretched periopal skin there, disguising the whole thing. Okay, so that is what you're going to start seeing this all over the place. And so here's another thing that goes on. You see, there's a number of things going on here when this is going on. Yes, it does pull up off the buttress. Okay, I'll show you something here. Let's look at the buttresses inside of the hoof capsules. I've got several hoof capsules here. Let's look at the buttresses inside and at the heel. Now this is the foot that was rarely trimmed, grew long, and so it's run forward. You see that? See the heel here? Okay. Should be, but he still had a correct length of heel there. Even though his heels ran forward, they weren't trimmed out of him. You know, so let's look inside here at this. Okay, here's the buttress right here. Now look though. Look at the width of the periopal. Okay, it's correct. Now, but if the heels would have been trimmed out, there's something about it that pulls that cartilage down and it'll make that periopal stretch like that. But what I want you to look at here are the differences in this area right in here. Look here. That's where the heel fits in. See there? That's where the heel of the foot. That's right in front of the buttress. The buttress butts up to the heel. There we go. See, there's where your heel of your foot would fit. See, you can see there's some depth to that, right? This is where this area of the foot would fit. Right in back here. Right in back there. Let's look at this again. This piece of the foot. This area, we want to look at this area. It's right in front of the buttress. This is your heel. This is the actual heel. Okay? The hoof capsule, that is the external part, but the horse's foot, this is the heel right here. See? This is your heel, clear up to here. All of this, including the side, okay, back here, that's your heel. All right, and it fits in here. All right, let's look at this one. This one here. Now, this was Cookie, an Appaloosa mare that I trimmed for quite a few years, and she was totally foundered with laminitis and a laminar wedge this wide when I first met her. I still was trimming the heel buttress out of her right here. This should have been higher. See, this wall should have been up like that, supporting the back of her foot. Let's see if I can put that. It's down like that. It should have been up like this. Okay. All right. Now look at the depth of the heel for her. Again, that heel sets right in there. You see it? Okay. So that heel has to have a place to set in right back here. Now we're going to look at some more because they don't have as much. Okay. Here's another hoof capsule. Again, here's the area where that heel sets. But as the heel wall is trimmed out, this gets to have less and less depth to it so that it doesn't fit on the heels. And again, that cartilage wants to move up. So this periopal here, see, this was a little more stretched because I was in the process of trying to cripple this horse and trim the heels out of it, okay, when it got colic and died. So it's a little more stretched there because see how I had trimmed the heel out right there? Okay, let's look at another foot here. I think I broke some of the heel off of this. Okay, look at the growth rings. What are the growth rings doing? See how they're curving around and down? See? Okay, that I explained in the last part of the class. Okay, now look at the depth. Look at the depth of where the heel's supposed to set. There is no depth there. So see, you literally are trimming the capsule off of these horses. See, you know, the shoe has to fit the foot, right? This is the shoe. Okay, this is Cat Dancer, who had the horrible laminitis in one of my first videos. This was my first feet that I got for a dissection. You see that? That's a laminar wedge. But let's look at her heels. Look at the periopal skin. Periopal skin goes from here to here. It's that wide. See, her heel here was totally trimmed out. So this heel right here had nothing to really set in. And so the whole foot was unstable. Okay, so let's look at her heel area. Okay, this is all stretched periopal, and there was really nothing for her heel to adhere to in here. She also has, you see that? That's another set of sole growing. Because another thing that happens with these horses is that as the heel is trimmed out, okay, look at the growth rings. How do they go? Are they going like this? No, they're going like this. Just like I showed you in the first part of the class, how when the heels are trimmed out and the hairline is pulled down, it's going to do this, see? But what happens? That cartilage wants to go back up. That cartilage doesn't want to stay down here. Can you see those growth rings? Yes, and pressure sores. This mare had pressure sores all over her from laying down. See? But look at the bottom. You know, I mean, now I've got it all marked up, but the frog looked like everything looked kind of normal from the bottom to a degree. Okay, so she actually had another set of sole. This hoof capsule was totally dead, and she had, look at that, that's sole. That's sole. This is sole, but that is sole because the foot became totally separated from the capsule. Now, I mean, the capsule didn't come off, but it came totally separated on the inside, pulled out of the original capsule, but the capsule's still on the foot so that the internal foot is growing sole on it in between here. See that? You need to know this because you need to recognize when a foot is not correct and when the heel is trimmed out of it. See now, Molly, she kind of goes down, but not as bad. Not as bad because we're in the process of correcting that. I can show you pictures where her periopal skin is like that. You know? Okay, well, I just want to show you what laminar wedge is. Okay, here's the laminar wedge. That's where the stratum lamellum, the lamina, stretches and stretches and stretches and produces, and this is as hard as hoof wall. See? And once your horse, these horses can rotate a lot and you can fix the foot. But when the rotation gets up here to the coronary band, very difficult to ever fix that horse after that. Because then all the hoof wall is growing cattywampus. instead of, look at here. Okay, that's why you want to look for bulges up here when you're looking at these horses. Because see how smooth that is? That fits in there. Can you see the wedge on the bottom? No, not on this foot. Okay, I have it all marked up, so it's hard to see. But this foot has a nice tight white line right here. And the sole and everything looks normal, except, you know, she finally gave out right here. See, there's your laminar wedge. Okay, her foot was clear back here. Her toe was clear back here when it should have been right there. And all this going on, and nobody could see it going on. But one thing that was a clue was this stretched periopal skin. This is why I say when you trim the heels out of these horses, it causes mechanical laminitis and it gets blamed on the grass. This mare had been shod and trimmed by a farrier, not a barefoot trimmer, but he still trimmed the heels out of her. And like I said, periopal skin's supposed to be like that. It's clear down to here. So little teeny heels, and what happened was the cartilage and the heel kept pulling upwards like this. And you'll see this in these horses with laminitis when they rotate. They just have, they look real weird. See, that's all the wider that periopal's supposed to be, but they'll be like that. And it's because the heels are trimmed out. And again, it is because you may trim the heel out and you may pull this hairline way down, but it does not want to stay there. See, that cartilage, you know, let's see. That cartilage, you're supposed to have at least this much heel under there. That is not a 30-degree hairline. Sorry, but it isn't. Okay. And so this cartilage gets pulled down, but it wants to come back up. Okay, now I'm going to explain something else to you about that. And then we're going to start going through the TACT mapping, because I feel that except for explaining a little bit about hoof distortion, somebody remind me to explain about flared out hooves before we start the mapping. Okay? Flared out hooves. I need to explain to you about long toes and flared out hooves before we start the mapping. So do not let me forget. Okay. What I'm going to do here, trimming out these heels and the way the periopal covers it up and disguises it, how it creates a false heel, how it creates a false foot. And I have to show you something about how deceiving this is and why people are so easily deceived into it. Okay, this is what I want to show you. Now, as the heels are being trimmed out, the capsule, literally, the capsule is being trimmed out. Now, first of all, heels. What are your heels? You need to know your heels. Let's look at the parts of the foot here. Okay. All of this to here is heel. Everything behind here, that's all heel. Bar, heel. Okay, when we go to the side, all of that behind there is heel. You see, your heel just isn't this little piece right here. This whole area is heel. And so when I say the heels are being trimmed out of a horse, so all of this back here is heel. Now, if I was to trim this foot like they would teach, like Strasser teaches, like Henderson, like other people teach, not all of them don't teach this. Some people just teach to take it back to the base of the frog. But see, that's not good enough because you still wind up trimming the heel out of the horse. You have to know the anatomy of this heel, and you have to figure out how this is supposed to be structurally to fit on this and to support it. Okay, so every time I take this heel down to the base of the frog, I'm going to lower it. All right, especially if the heel is kind of run forward, the more you take it back to the base of the frog, the more you lower it. Because, you know, the more something is on an angle, the lower it gets. As these heels are being trimmed out, this hoof capsule is being shortened, and you can trim out the whole hoof capsule clear up to here. You can trim out that much hoof capsule, and this periopal all stretch all over it there and disguise it, and your foot that should be this long winds up being this long. Okay, now as this is happening, as this is being trimmed out and it's shortening and it's going this way, right? As this is happening, now you see here, I got a nice long bar. Do you see that nice length of that bar there? As the heel is being trimmed out, first the buttress goes. This buttress, which is a big triangular chunk of hoof wall here that supports the whole wall. First that goes, and then the bar and the wall squeeze together right here, and it forms a false buttress or a false heel. You trim it out, the shorter the bar gets to where it seems like you don't have any bar at all. Because see, your bar corium goes from here to here, and that grows your bar wall up here. So as this is being trimmed out and as this is all being pulled forward, or the different things that go on with it, you'll see this is another thing. Not only we see the wide periopal, you will see bars get short. See, this heel will travel up. It's no longer the heel buttress, because what did I tell you? That as sole gets covered up, it quits growing, right? Same thing with the heel buttress. As it's smashed and pulled forward, it just quits growing, you know? It quits growing. And so that's why as the foot unrolls, it has to start growing again. And so so that's another thing you'll see, that these bars are getting shorter and the overall foot is getting shorter. Now, here, I'm going to explain something. 1/3, 2/3 natural balance to the equine hoof. Has anybody heard of that? Yeah, see, now originally Gene Ovanek came up with this. Okay, I'll explain to you what it is. When Gene Ovanek did his hoof research, and you should read that original research paper on wild horses in Wyoming. What they did was they captured wild horses and then they took imprints on boards of their feet. Okay? So I'm going to show you what that is. We're going to screen share, and I'm going to have to learn how to do this again because, you know. And this little picture here shows you the 1/3, 2/3 balance, natural balance to the equine foot, which is 1/3 in front of the widest part of the hoof, and 2/3 in back of the widest part of the hoof. And sometimes they use the apex of the frog. Okay? This is the 1/3, 2/3 balance that Gene Ovanek found studying wild horses and their hooves. All right, so this is really misunderstood, and even I have misunderstood it. And because it's misunderstood, now you have all these people teaching natural trimming who are trying to make the horse's foot at 1/3 of his foot in front of the apex of the frog and 2/3 of his foot behind the apex of the frog. So, but that's not what this teaches. This needs to be studied a little more. Do you see this? Okay, this is Gene Ovanek, Wild Horse Hoof Pattern Offers Help for Domestic Hoof Problems. This is his study he did. Okay, and this is what people are always trying to get, only they're doing it wrong. They're making 1/3 in front of the toe and 2/3 behind, and they're just messing up a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm gonna Okay. Now, like it says, if you can't explain it simply, you simply don't understand it well enough, or whatever it is I got on my thing. Okay, so the normal hoof is something like this. Something like 1/3 about there, and then 2/3 behind, generally. Okay? So if you are trimming the heels out of a horse, and slowly these heels are moving from here, okay, up to here, what's going to happen? Okay, that's going to change your whole 1/3, 2/3 ratio, right? What's it going to do? It's going to make the toe look long. So then you're going to want to be taking toe off more and more. And so when you are looking at these feet with the heels trimmed out, you're going to look at them and you're going to think the toe needs corrected, that the toe looks long. But the toe is not long. It's the heels that have been shortening up going this way. So, you know, what happened was, when I was on Cheryl Henderson's Yahoo group for a short period of time, I was watching her do hoof markups, because she just does them on the sole. That's the only part of the foot she looks at. Well, what she didn't realize was the way Strasser taught to trim the heels was slowly trimming the heels out, and the heels were moving forward. See? So to her, that made the toe look short all the time. And so she was always coming in there. Now, I didn't know or understand this was going on. All I saw was that I seen these perfectly good feet, and she would do a markup, and she would have somebody just totally take the toe. Well, what are you taking off there? You're taking clear back up into the sole corium. And so then these horses were getting horribly sore, you know, and crippled. So the combination of thinking that the toe is long, because when the heels go shorter, it makes the toe look longer when the toe is normal. Okay, and this is why so many horses were getting, I mean, literally crippled, you know, because they were taken off. See, here's how it goes. From the true apex of the frog, 3/4 inch is the end of the coffin bone. Then another 1/4 inch is the end of the sole corium. Then you have to allow the foot to grow. You have to allow sole. You have to have some sole. The foot grows down and forward, see? So you got to have some sole in here too. And so that's why I added and made it longer than what some people did. So what they were doing was they were, by heels shorter, they were moving up like this. Their toe was looking long. It was changing that whole 1/3, 2/3 thing. Okay, if this is now 2/3, this and this, that makes this what should have been 1/3 too long. You see there? And so you have to shorten it up so that it's 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. Hoof capsule, okay? As they trim the heel out of it, the hairline is being, the hairline is being pulled down, and they're trimming till finally they got this, okay? Now this was the original foot, okay? They've trimmed almost 1/3 out of the foot. You see that? You can trim your coffin bone ends right about here. So you can't trim any more than that out, but everywhere where this hoof wall covers cartilage, you can trim it out, okay? And so even if we divided this whole foot into thirds, 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. Well, once I take this away, I have to redo it. And what they do is they start at the toe here. Okay? The toe starts coming back this way to do it. So let's see. Anyway, you wind up getting also a much shorter toe here. You know, because I've trimmed this out, so I'm trying to make the toe match what I'm doing back here. Okay, that's all I can explain on that for now. Flares, you gotta understand flares when you're doing this trim, because when you have flares, you have really thin sole. I'll explain a flare. Oh, wait. I can explain a flare with a glass. Okay, this is your inner foot right here. This is your hoof capsule. Okay, when you got a tight hoof capsule, it holds the foot up off the ground. See there? Like so. See? But when the walls flare, that happens. It drops. See? This is a flared wall. As you get the walls unflared, it's going to pick the foot up off the ground. It's going to allow you to have some sole. Okay? Because remember, this wall, it's retaining. It is called retaining wall. You should research what a retaining wall is. Okay? It does share and bear some weight with the sole, but it cannot bear weight alone since it is on a hook to the foot on a dovetail fashion, and it will jam right up in here and push that coronary band clear up there. So this wall has to be tight on this inner foot to hold it up off the ground so the sole can grow to its optimum thickness when your walls are flared. Okay, you see how I just picked this up? Oh, see, my tightened hand picks the glass up. If I loose my hand, it falls to the ground. Same thing with the foot. As the walls get tighter and better connected, not only do you not have the cracks because they're coming together, but it also picks the foot up off the ground and allows sole to grow underneath it. That is why when a wall is flared, it drops the whole foot to the ground and you can't grow any sole and you have a flat foot. Want to see when you go to trim a foot is, does my foot have flares? Because the first thing you're going to have to work on is growing this wall down tightly connected with no flaring. And a lot of times you can even feel the flare. You know, you feel it go out like this. Okay, so that's the first thing you want to do is you want to work at bringing that foot together by getting leverages off of it. And that means that your horse might have to have support. It might need to be cast, or at least it's got to be on soft ground. Flares are fixed. So Rufus asks, so flares are fixed with beveling. Well, just because it's going to hold your wall together and it's going to offer some support for the sole, you know, so that horse just has some support. You could use boots. Also, you know, and a lot of times a foot that is flared will have a hard time holding a shoe, you know, because there's a tight wall is what enables those nails to go through the wall and really secure those shoes to the feet. All right, so you can have flares on the sides or you can have a flared toe, and that means that this foot is really low to the ground. Say that is one kind of foot you can have. So that is not a foot like, this is something that has really bothered me in trying to explain to people, and I felt that they misunderstood, you know, because a lot of times in my trimming videos, I've already gotten rid of my flares, and I'm just working on a foot that kind of has some sole and a little bit of depth to it. And so kind of if you do some of what I would do in those videos, if you had a really flared foot, that's going to make that horse even more sore or tender because he's already got, you know, no support. So anyway, so this is something you have to take into consideration when you first start doing this trim, that the one thing you're working on is getting the walls to come together. Now, there is a way to do this besides just using a bevel. Okay, you want to get leverages off and stuff like that. What I do is I try and get the leverage off, leave a little bit of support, but I do another thing too, and you probably won't want to do this, but I do it, and it worked beautifully. What I do, if I have a hoof wall, okay, that really curves like that, like some of them do, I'll feel down to where it starts to curve out, and then I'll get me a hacksaw, and I will just go through. I can show you pictures where I did this, and it worked really awesomely, and it doesn't destabilize the wall, doesn't hurt the horse, doesn't. Okay, horn tubules, they're growing down like this. The ones growing down from the top will follow the ones growing out from the bottom. See, if this horn tubule here starts to go out like that, as it grows down, it's going to go, oh, I'm just going to follow the leader. See? So what I would do is I would come up here to where it comes out like this. Like, here's your wall, but here it starts to curve out. See there? And it's supposed to grow straight down like this. Here, we'll make a foot. Okay? But my wall is curving out right here. Okay? So what I do is right here, where it starts to curve out, I'll get my saw and I'll just cut, not all the way through the hoof wall, but maybe just about that deep through the hardest, most numerous horn tubules on the pigmented wall. That is. If you make just a small cut right there, that makes these horn tubules, and then you keep the leverage off down here, that makes these horn tubules up here grow straight down instead of wanting to go and follow these out. See, I've used this on the side of the foot. I've used it also on the dorsal wall. Now, at first, I used to just take my rasp and make a big old wide groove there. That wasn't good. So now I just put a thin cut right there, and then it grows out beautifully. So that's something you can do, and it doesn't take away the stability of the wall. If I were to rasp down this wall to make it look like it's not flared, I would thin it down to the white, softer part of the wall. Well, the weight of the horse on the foot, you know, what are you dealing with here? Look at this capsule. Look how thin it is. You know, if you take away the stability of this part of the wall, then, you know, the weight of this foot in there, it's just going to be all over the place, pushing it out and things like that. Okay, now, what do you understand kind of about flares and stuff? Gilding's back foot, he's got one of those weird back feet, you know, that's common, where it goes like this. Anybody know what I'm talking about there? Where like the lateral side will be way flared out and even lower the hairline here. Okay, I put what I did. See what can happen. This is another thing that can happen now. You have to make allowance for what if your coffin bone has remodeled. This coffin bone is slightly remodeled. It's not square, so to speak. By square, I mean it's not symmetrical and not the way what the horse was born with. From the foot being imbalanced and stuff, the coffin bone kind of remodeled itself. So that can happen. Okay, now I might be able to show you this because he had it here. Okay, do you see how one side goes out more and is bent? Okay, so there might be only so much you can correct on some of these horses. But I had a theory because the coffin bone is different than any other bone in the body. That's why it remodels the way it does. I had a theory that I have been working on my gelding whose back foot was really bad like this. And my theory was that if I just cut the wall here, because see the top of the wall grew straight, but it was about here that it started going out like that. Okay, so I had this theory that if I would just put a groove here to separate the hardest horn tubules that curved right here and went out like that, that if I could force these horn tubules to just keep growing down straight like that, that sooner or later they might grow down and make this bone kind of start shoving over. You see what I'm saying? Make the bone start kind of coming over and going that way. And so it's been working. It's been working. That foot is better than it's been since, before I screwed it up. He's getting much more balanced. He's coming up. To me, it seems to be working. Okay, here, this is a good question. What about your horse's sole? Like with that sided flare, like what is the sole like in that side of the foot? And this is what I was wanting to talk to you about too. It's going to be thin. It's going to be thin and hollow looking. Okay, see the horse. Where is my one? You don't see it on this foot. Well, you can kind of see it. Okay, there is the sole ridge. Okay, just like in the toe, if your toe is stretched forward, the sole ridge here is going to be flat and thin. It's the same way if the foot on the side is pulled out. That side of the foot is going to be hollowish and flat. When the whole wall comes together, you will get a sole ridge around the whole perimeter of this foot. Because remember, the sole corium starts right here. So it grows a convex sole ridge around this foot here. Okay, when the wall is tight and retaining the sole where she should be. But anywhere where you've got a flare, that's going to pull the sole out and the sole will be thin on that side. Okay, if you're looking at a foot from the side, well, that's got a flare in it. Okay, now a lot of feet are like this, but when they take that rasp and rasp it off, it looks like it's not flared. See? But then what do you have? Super thin hoof wall from here to here, right? Okay, but remember, what do you got? You got horn tubules. Okay, now you can have, what I usually see is, See how all them horn tubules are following each other? So a lot of times I'll put a groove here. See where it goes out. Here's the side. It's flaring out like that. Okay, so I'm going to put a groove here to keep these horn tubules here from wanting to follow those. See? That's the toe. Here's the sides of the foot. Sometimes, because these are going down like this and then forward, sometimes I will come in here and I will put a groove just right here as well. See there? That way, I'm keeping these ones that want to go forward that way from wanting to curve around like this. See, because you got two ways this is doing it. It's going out like this, but you got your horn tubules are going forward like that. So then I'll just put, you know, a small groove here and one right here. And then, okay, here's something you need to see too. Okay, now, where would I bring my toe back to? A lot of times I will sight down the side of the foot to see where that toe should be going. Okay, so if I was sighting here, I would look at the coronary band and this part of the foot, and I would say, well, where should that foot be growing to? And I would look and it should be growing to right here. See there? So I would want to take off the leverage. Now you make allowance for the thickness of the hoof wall. So basically I'd come back here a little bit, and this is where I would take the toe back to. I would take it back just right to here. Okay, and then as it grows down and it pushes this forward, I'm going to keep coming in here and taking this, just taking this back a little bit right there. You know, I don't want to super thin it out or totally get rid of it and make it look like it's not flared. I want, as this is growing down, I want it to push this out. See there? Okay, now, as this is growing down straight, you see these horn tubules here? It's also going to push them back that way. And so, also, as I am keeping the breakover kind of back there, because see, as soon as this wall gets down to here, it's going to retain the sole correctly in the right spot, so that then this piece of wall, which is married to this piece of sole, can grow down together. See, all this would be sole that would be straightening out. These pieces here all have to come back. All of this, the whole horn tubule. Connect with that, where they're connected with this sole here, so that the sole can grow to its optimum thickness. And so the first place you're probably going to get this is here. Then it will come into the pillars. Then you're going to get the quarters. And last of all, the heel, because another thing that happens is you'll find on your feet that you'll see on the medial side, the sole in the heel, just a minute here, the sole in the heel right here will be nice and thick and full. But on your lateral sides, you'll see it's all hollowed out. Okay? But as soon as you get all the flares out and you get the wall back to where it's supposed to, then this sole is able to grow to its optimum thickness in the heel the way it's supposed to. Okay, does that kind of explain some stuff there? What you got to do, you'll see on the mapping how we do the bars, that these bars have a boundary. There's a boundary here. And you have to learn to cut the bar straight and to cut the bar correctly. Does the hoof wall make the sole more straight? Oh, she says no, she meant bar. Well, yeah, it all has to work together. You have to start correcting them, trimming them correctly, getting them so they're not laying over and pushing over the sole. Because see, I know why you're asking that, okay? Because I had the same problem on my horse where not only is the wall flared out this way, but the bar is laying over that way and growing that way. Is that correct? Yeah. So slowly that has been getting straightened out, because what you have is an asymmetrical foot that's wider on this side. And then the bar also is laying over and everything's pushing over like that. So it all as you keep boundaries and as you work at all this stuff, it all starts to grow together to correct itself. Okay, like on Valor, I had a bar that was laid over like that. And at that time, too, I still wasn't realizing that you need to keep a boundary on your frog. So I was letting my frogs grow and fill up this area and push stuff out. And so the bar laid over here, or the frog got thick and filled up in here and laid over on the bar. And I come out one day and I went, I think I'm just going to trim that frog over, because I was learning about boundaries on frogs. And when I trimmed the frog over, the bar was completely broken off. And so I had to remove the whole bar. And there was dirt under it and everything. And it took like 50 days, but then it miraculously grew back, seemed like overnight, you know. So after that, then I had this one situation where I had a bar that was laying over flat, and I experimented by just kind of removing some of that bar and getting it to grow up straighter. But I'd be careful in saying that, because I am not at all on the bars like some of the stuff they are teaching. Say, the bars have boundaries, so you learn in the mapping to just keep that boundary. Okay. So does everybody have access to some papers? Oh, many welcomes to you, dear.